Okay, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to focus on chapter 5, which you should have read already. As you can see here in the schedule for your pre-study for today, you were supposed to read chapter 5. So that's what we're going to go over. But before we do that, we're going to read the third part of the video of the story to get a very clear idea on how the third part goes. As you know, the Odyssey is divided into 3 parts. Yeah, so we've got part 1 where Odysseus is still on an island, yeah? And, okay, wait, this is loading. Where Odysseus is still on an island and his son is out to look for him. And then in the second part, we could see that Odysseus is trying to get back home. And then in the third part, basically, Odysseus takes back his kingdom.
In the previous section, Odysseus told the story of his travels and his imprisonment on... In the previous section, Odysseus told the story of his travels and his imprisonment on Calypso's island. After hearing Odysseus' tale, King Alcinous urges everyone to give him gifts and arranges for a ship to take him home. They sail out, and before reaching Ithaca, Odysseus falls asleep. The sailors unload Odysseus on the shore and sail away, leaving Odysseus to wake up alone. At first, he doesn't recognize Ithaca, and he worries he's been tricked again. Athena appears in the form of a young shepherd boy and tells Odysseus where he is. He gets emotional knowing he's finally home, but he chokes back his emotion. He doesn't recognize Athena, so he hides his identity and tells this elaborate lie about how he killed a guy, and now he's a fugitive. Athena reveals her true form. She says she helped him to get home, and now she's going to help him with his new trial, killing the suitors. She transforms Odysseus so no one will recognize him, and tells him to go find one of his servants, the swineherd, while she goes to Sparta to call Telemachus home and warn him about the ambush the suitors have planned. Odysseus goes to the hut of the swineherd, Eumaeus. Eumaeus doesn't recognize him, and as they talk, he says over and over how much he misses his master. But Odysseus doesn't reveal his identity. Instead, he tells another elaborate lie, making up a whole life story that ends with him being enslaved by sailors. Meanwhile, Athena goes to Sparta and finds Telemachus. She tells him to go back to Ithaca at once. She warns him about the ambush of his ship the suitors are planning, and how to get around it. When he arrives home, he should go straight to the swineherd's place and spend the night there. When Telemachus reaches Ithaca, he goes to see Eumaeus, and he sees Odysseus there, still disguised as a beggar. Telemachus asks Eumaeus to go to his mother and let her know that he's all right. Eumaeus leaves, and Athena removes Odysseus' disguise. Telemachus doesn't know who he is at first, since he was just an infant when Odysseus left for Troy 20 years ago. Initially, he doesn't believe Odysseus when Odysseus reveals his identity, but Odysseus convinces him, and they have a happy, tearful reunion. Telemachus provides Odysseus with some details about the suitors. He counts 108 of them, plus servants, and father and son plot their revenge. That night, the suitors gather in Odysseus' palace for dinner. They saw Telemachus earlier when he went home to see his mother, and they realized he'd made it past the ambush. Now Telemachus is there, and Odysseus, still in disguise, and Eumaeus both show up. Odysseus goes around to the suitors begging for scraps, and he gets into an argument with one named Antinous, who gets angry and throws a chair at him. Odysseus gets into a few more confrontations before the night is over. Once the suitors have gone home for the night, Odysseus tells Telemachus to lock up their weapons and armor, which they always leave at Odysseus' palace. That way, when he takes his revenge, they'll be defenseless. Penelope comes down to speak to the stranger, in hopes that he has some news about Odysseus. He makes up a story about meeting Odysseus when Odysseus stopped at his house on the way to Troy. He says he saw Odysseus not long ago, and he knows Odysseus is on his way home. The next day, the suitors gather for another feast in Odysseus' palace. While they're eating and drinking, Penelope announces that she's finally going to choose a man to marry, and she proposes a contest to determine who it'll be. Each of the suitors must string Odysseus' bow and shoot an arrow through 12 lined-up axes. The man that can do it will be her husband. A few of the suitors try to string the bow, which involves flexing it into the proper shape and then getting the string in place to hold it taut, but none of them are strong enough to do it. Odysseus asks for a turn. The suitors object at first, but they finally give in. Odysseus strings the bow with ease, and he fires an arrow straight through all 12 axe handles. Without warning, Odysseus leaps up and shoots the suitor Antinous through the throat. Then he reveals to the suitors who he is. Chaos erupts through the hall as Odysseus picks them off one by one. Odysseus tells Telemachus, the swineherd Eumaeus, and a cowherd who was nice to him, to run to the storeroom and bring back armor and weapons. The men return with the equipment, but one of the suitors sneaks out through a smoke duct in the wall and brings back equipment for the suitors. A huge melee breaks out, and Odysseus, Telemachus, Eumaeus, and the cowherd fight until they've slaughtered all the suitors. When all the suitors are dead, Odysseus has Eurycleia round up the disloyal servant women who are sleeping with the suitors. He makes them clean the hall, and when they're done, Telemachus and the two herdsmen march them outside and kill them. Eurycleia tells Penelope that Odysseus has returned, and Penelope goes downstairs and finds Odysseus in the great hall. She doesn't believe it's him at first. He looks like her husband, but it's been 20 years since she last saw him. She tests him by asking Eurycleia to bring the bed out of their bedroom in front of him. Odysseus speaks up immediately, saying it's impossible to move the bed. He carved it himself from a large olive tree that grew out of the floor, and he built the walls of the bedroom around it. Penelope is convinced. She runs to Odysseus and embraces him. She says she worried that some impostor had come claiming to be her husband, but now he's home at last. Odysseus says he has to sail out once more, to plant an oar far inland, in order to appease Poseidon. But once that's done, they'll have peace. They go to bed, and Odysseus tells her everything he's been through. The next morning, Odysseus goes to see his father, Laertes. Laertes doesn't recognize Odysseus at first, and Odysseus makes up another story, calling himself Man of Strife from Romer Town. But eventually, he reveals who he is, and he and his father hug and cry. They go inside and sit down to a feast with Telemachus and the herdsmen, as well as some friends of Laertes. The families of the suitors have found out about the slaughter at Odysseus' palace, and they formed a mob to get revenge on Odysseus. They show up at Laertes' farm and threaten Odysseus and the others. Athena shows up in the form of Mentor, and Laertes spears the leader of the mob through the head. All hell is about to break loose, but Athena stops everyone and commands them to be civil. The families leave, and Odysseus feels he has peace at last. For more information about the Odyssey, check out the Odyssey SparkNote at www.sparknotes.com.
Okay, so basically when we're looking at this, what we can see is that Odysseus is still trying to get home. And if you look at your adaptation of the story, your book, then in chapter 8 is the homecoming, right? In chapter 8 is the homecoming, basically. If we look at your adaptation, I told you before that your story is a little bit different from the story, the original one, because the original one is a longer version from the one that we're having, right? But still, it uses the same pacing. Okay. Now, what we can see in our book is that in the first 2 chapters we saw it was more about Telemachus, Odysseus' son, and then starting from 3 and 4 it was more about Odysseus finally being able to go home. And now in 5, 6, and 7 you will see how he is on his way with a lot of strife in order to get home. Then in chapter 8 is where he gets home. And then in chapter 9 is where Telemachus comes home. And that's then in 10, 11, and 12, how they take over the kingdom and everything is then settled back to normal. That is basically what we see in our story. So now you've seen the 3 parts of the video to understand what the storyline is. So that's what we're going to lean into. But for now, we're going to focus on chapter 5. Okay. So this is a journey where Odysseus is on his way back home, but on that journey back home, he gets a lot of problems basically on his way. It wasn't an easy journey home. And knowing that in the meantime, the suitors are still at his kingdom, trying to overtake his kingdom, and Telemachus is not yet back. He is still in Sparta or wherever he is. The suitors have like made an ambush for whenever Telemachus would come back, they would kill Telemachus because they were just set on getting the kingdom for themselves. So that is basically where we are at in the story right now. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'd like to ask James to start reading with us, to read the first paragraph. James, can you start reading?
The first one, right?
Yeah. Let me read it.
Okay. King Alcinous said, Odysseus, I do not know where to begin and end my story. The gods have put so many troubles in my path, but I shall start by giving you my name. Though my home is far from here, I want you all to think of me as your friend. I am Odysseus, son of Laertes,
Yeah.
and my home is on Ithaca. It is a rocky island, but there is no sweeter sight for a man than his own country. The whole world talks about my clever plans during the Trojan War, but let me tell you about the disastrous voyage that followed.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, cool. Shalini, can you continue with the next paragraph? From Troy?
From Troy I sailed with my companions to the city of Cicones, who had fought for the Trojans in the war. We destroyed the city and killed most of the men who lived there. We shared the women and the treasures from the city between us, and then I told my men to leave. The fools refused. There was still a lot of wine and meat in the city, so they stayed there, filling their stomachs. This gave the Cicones time to get help from other cities in the area, whose armies were larger and better trained. In the morning, they attacked us, as many of them as the leaves and flowers in spring. We held them back at first, but after a whole day of fighting, they broke our line. My men and I had to run to our ships in confusion, with the enemy at our back. 6 men from each of our 12 ships were killed. The rest of us were lucky to escape alive.
Yes, not so smart move, yeah? Okay, cool, thank you. Carissa Sanputri, can you continue? We sailed away.
We sailed away as fast as we could, crying for our lost companions. Soon there was more trouble. When we were nearly home, the winds carried us in the wrong direction, past Citera. For 9 days we were chased across the wave by those disastrous winds, and on the 10th day we reached the land of the lotus eaters. We got out of the ship, collected fresh water for the next part of our voyage, and had a quick meal on the beach. Then I sent 3 of my companions to find out what sort of people lived in this land.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Okay, we continue. Gracia?
Yes, Miss.
The man soon?
The man soon met the lotus eaters. Luckily, they were peaceful people who liked to share their food with strangers. There was just one problem. If you ate this sweet fruit, you forgot all talks or home. Immediately, my companions had no wish to return to the ship and bring us news. They only want to stay with the lotus eaters and eat lotus fruit all day. In the end, I had to use first to bring them back. Tears ran down their face as I tied them onto the ship and ordered the other men to continue the voyage home.
Yes, very good. Okay, Joyce.
Next, we came to the land of the Cyclopes. They are rough, lawless people, one-eyed and much taller than normal men. They have no form of government, but live with their families and their sheep in caves in the mountains, paying no attention to their neighbors. They live on good farmland, but they do not grow food on it. They have no ships either, so know nothing of the outside world.
That seems scary. Okay. Oh yeah, Ian Dustin.
Yes, miss. We landed on an island not far from the Cyclops' coast and had a look around. No one lived on the island, but there were plenty of animals and fruit for food, and fresh water stream. It was perfect. It was a perfect place to rest from our voyage. Some of the men went hunting, and soon there was meat cooking on the fires. All day we ate, washing down the food with red wine that we had taken from the Sycones. We looked across the sea to the land of the Cyclops. We could see the smoke from their fires and could even hear them calling out to their sheep.
Yeah. It must be a weird life, yeah. James? James already, yeah, just now, yeah. But you can continue. James, go on.
My crew sat on their oars, and it was not
The
long
next
before.
morning?
The next morning, I called the men together. My friends, I said, I am going to take my ship to find out what kind of people live in that land over there. The rest of you stay here and wait for our return.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Joshua, can you continue? My crew sat at their oars.
My crew sat at their oars, and it was not long before we had crossed to the mainland. As we were making the ship safe on the beach, we noticed a cave close to the sea. It had a very tall entrance and an area outside surrounded by a great wall of stone and branch. I chose my 12 best men to come with me and told the rest of my loyal companions to guard the ship. I filled a large wineskin with the finest wine from the ship. It had been a present from one of the Kikonians, a servant of the god Apollo, which family I had protected during our attack on his city. It was a wonderful drink. The servant had kept it secret for many years, and when he drank it he mixed 1 cupful of wine with 20 cupful of water. The smell of the wine was heavenly, and no one could refuse a drink of it. I brought this wine with me and some food because I had a strange feeling that the people will in this land were not going to be welcoming hosts.
Yeah, thank you. Shannon, can you continue?
It did not take us long to reach the cave. Its owner was not at home, so we went inside and looked around. There were enormous baskets of cheese, wooden buckets full of milk, and sheep organized into different age groups. Newborn babies in one area, spring born in another, and summer born in a third. My man suggested taking some cheese and sheep to the ship and sailing away quickly. Although this was good advice, I decided instead to wait for the owner of the cave to return. I was hoping for some gifts from our house.
Okay. Next paragraph, Abraham.
We lit a fire, ate some cheese, and sat down to wait. At last, the cave's owner arrived. He was a great monster, more like a mountain than a man, and had one big eye in the middle of his face. He was carrying an enormous pile of dry wood for the fire, which he threw down on the ground inside the cave with a great
Crash.
crash. We were so frightened by the noise that we ran to the back of the cave. He had been out on the hills with the adult sheep. Now he drove some of the sheep into the cave for milking and left the others in the walled area outside. Then he closed the entrance with an enormous stone too big for 20 horses to pull. He milked his sheep, then put each mother with her young. He used some of the milk for cheese and left the rest in a bucket to drink with supper. When he had
Okay, it's a bit hard. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. When
when
he had,
he had
yeah.
finished this work, he lit the fire again. That was the moment when he saw us.
Yeah, thank you. Well done. Okay, so what has been happening from the beginning of chapter 5? What have we seen happening right now? Devon, can you tell me?
Yes, Miss.
Apa yang terjadi sejauh ini? What has been happening? Devon? Who are we talking about? Who is the story about right now? Who is the main character?
Main character siapa tadi?
Huh? Who is the main character right now that we're reading about?
I forgot, Miss.
Natalia, who is the main character?
A monster?
Yeah, but that is not the main character. It's about him. He is in the story right now. But who is the main character that the story is revolving around right now? Anyone? Come on.
Odysseus?
Yes, Odysseus. This is still the focus, and thank you, of the story is still about, it's still focusing on Odysseus. And what about Odysseus? What part of Odysseus is it focusing on? What is Odysseus trying to do at this point in the story? Come on, people, answer. Is he just having fun with his friends? No, right? What is his whole purpose? What is he doing?
He tells his story to King Alcinous?
Yes, he tells his story to King Alcinous. The story of what? Of him trying to go home, yeah? This is the whole point of this part, is that him trying to go home. So he's telling the story of how he tried to go back home and all the struggles that he was facing. And this particular part of the story is about the monster that he meets. And it's actually stupid that he waited, because if he would have gone, he would have been safe, right? But little did he know that this was going to be such a huge giant popping up, yeah? Maybe they had never seen someone as big as this monster, probably, yeah. Okay, we're gonna finish the page. I would like to ask, wait, where is it? Bima to continue reading. Strangers.
Strangers, he cried. Who are you? Where are you from? And why have you come to these shores? The men's march. Should I continue?
Yes.
The man's monstrous body and deep, loud voice filled us with terror, but I managed to find the words to reply. We are the Greeks, I said. On our way back from Troy, the winds drove us in the wrong direction, as the gods intended, I suppose. We are proud to say that we fought with the great Agamemnon in the Trojan War. But now we are asking for your help. We are hoping that you can welcome us as your guests and perhaps even give us some gifts. Remember your duty to Zeus, who is the protector of travelers in need of friendly welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we continue. Grace, can you continue reading?
Yes, miss. Stranger, you must be a fool, or from very far from here. If you think that I care about Zeus and the other gods, we Cyclops are much stronger than the gods. I will only be kind to you and your men if it suits me, not out of fear of Zeus' punishments. But tell me, where did you leave your ship? Was it near here or further along the coast?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can see here that in this story, Homer was very much in that time era. They very much believed in gods and all that, and that's why that is also so strongly incorporated in the story itself. Yeah. The ancient language with which this story was written was ancient Greek. They called it the Dionic dialect. So that was mixed with archaic forms and other dialects. So this whole story was also written in a very ancient Greek time. Yeah, it's really unknown exactly when the story was written, but probably it was mainland Greece approximately 700 before Common Era. So it's really, really an old story. That's why the story, as you read it, is about monsters and about gods and these beliefs, since there were no scientific facts, right? Yeah. So it is interesting. Sometimes when we read it, you go like, why do these people think like that? But that was just because of that time. Yeah. Okay, so here they are. They are expecting a monster to give them hospitality, which they're not getting. Not so smart to expect that from a monster, is it now? Okay, we're going to continue with Satya Dewi.
Miss?
Yeah? His question was intended to trick me.
His question was intended to trick me, but I am not a fool. I quickly thought of a story to tell him. Our ship was destroyed in a storm off your coast. It is in pieces on the rocks north of here. Luckily, I and my friends here escaped alive. The cruel monster did not reply. Instead, he jumped up, caught two of my companions in his great hands, and knocked their heads against the stone floor of the cave. Here are their legs first, then their arms, then the rest of them, even the bones, until there was nothing left. We watched in shock, praying to Zeus for pity. When the Cyclops had finished his meal and washed it down with milk, he stretched out next to his sheep for sleep.
Okay, this is something. Okay, thank you very much. Well done. Yeah, so for him, knowing it's a monster, for him it's like ants. They're like super small. Okay, Nathan, can you continue reading? I felt. Nathan?
Yes, miss.
Can you continue reading? I felt my sword.
I felt my sword, planning to kill him as he slept. But then I saw the heavy stone in the entrance and realized that without his strength, we could never get out of the cave. So we wait fearful for morning.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome means. Okay, let's see what else we got. Christian?
Yes, Miss.
Can you continue reading?
When he woke,
yeah.
When he woke, the Cyclops lit the fire again and milked his sheep. Then he took 2 more of my men and ate them greedily. Finally, he pushed the stone away from the entrance without difficulty, drove the adult sheep out of the cave, and replaced the stone. As he went with the sheep to find grass, I was left in the cave with murder in my heart.
Okay, Karis, how do you think Odysseus feels? Why does he says, I was left in the cave with murder in my heart? What does that mean? Do you know? What do you think? Menurutmu, apa artinya? Menurutmu? I cannot hear you. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I don't know, Miss.
You have no idea? What do you think he feels? He's in the cave. He just saw 2 of his friends being eaten. 2 of his friends got eaten. Like we're eating a chicken wing. That monster just ate. How do you think he feels? Come on, you got something. Perasaannya Odysseus seperti apa habis lihat temannya dimakan? Come on. Bagaimana Karis menurutmu?
Sad and scared, Miss.
Exactly. He's sad one side. I think he's so afraid. Probably he thinks, okay, I'm next, you know, like there's no surviving from this, you know. I'd like to ask Bima. Bima, why do you think it says, I was left in the cave with murder in my heart?
Which?
I was left in the cave with murder in my heart. What we just...
He wants to take revenge for his men.
Yeah. So there is this fear, but also this great anger, like seeing the injustice that has been just done towards him and his friends. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Awesome. This was my plan in the cave. It was an enormous stick. The Cyclops sometimes carried it when he was out walking, but it was big enough to support the sail of a good-sized ship. Cut off part of the stick and gave it a sharp point at the end. Then my man and I held it over the fire to make it hard. When I was ready, we hid it at the back of the cave. Then I chose 4 men to help me when the Cyclops returned. Evening finally came, and the Cyclops returned with his sheep. This time, he left none of the sheep outside in the walled area. When they were all safely inside the cave with him, he closed the entrance with the stone, did the milking, took another 2 of my men and started eating. Trying to hide my fear. Here we go. I went to him with a wooden bowl full of the wine that I had brought with me. Here, Cyclops, have some wine to wash down your meal. There was some very fine wine on our ship. We brought it to you as a gift, hoping that you would help us on our journey home. We wanted to be your friends, but your treatment of us has been more terrible than we ever imagined. Are you not ashamed of your behavior? The Cyclops laughed and took the wine. It tasted so good that he drank it quickly and asked for more. And while you pour it, tell me your name, he said. I would like to give you a present too, something that you will really like. We Cyclops have wine too, but it is nothing compared to this drink of yours. I gave him another bowl full of wine, and he drank it even more quickly than before. 3 times I filled the bowl for him, and 3 times the fool drank to the bottom of the bowl. Finally, when the wine had confused his mind, I said, Cyclops, you asked me my name. I will tell you, and then you can give me the gift that you have promised. My name is nobody. The cruel monster answered, and here is my gift. Of all these men, I will eat you. I will eat nobody last. Soon after he said this, he fell to the ground. He did not get up, but lay on his back, laughing until he went to sleep. In this alcoholic sleep, he was sick. Wine mixed with bits of my eaten man poured from his mouth. Oh, this is disgusting. It was hard not to be sick ourselves at this terrible sight, but this was our moment to act. I put the end of our stick into the dying fire to make it hot. Just before the stick started to burn, I pulled it out of the fire. Then my companions and I drove the sharp point of the stick into the Cyclops' eye. With all our force, we held it there. As his eye smoked and burned, he gave a terrible scream, and we moved away in terror. He pulled the stick from his eye, which was pouring blood onto the ground. Throwing the stick away, he called to the other Cyclops who lived in caves in the area. Hearing his screams, they came to find out what was wrong. Oh. From outside the cave, they shouted, "What's the matter, Polyphemus? Why have you woken us all up with those screams and shouts of yours? Is something stealing your sheep or trying to kill you?" Out of the cave came Polyphemus, replying, "My friends, nobody is trying to kill me." Okay, this is like the punchline so far we got. What does this mean? This is funny, okay? So he's screaming and yelling. Polyphemus is screaming and yelling to get his friends to help him. And then they come to the rescue and they're yelling back, "Is someone stealing your sheep or trying to kill you?" And so Polyphemus replies, "Oh, my friends, nobody is trying to kill me." Where actually he wants to say that that guy is trying to kill him, right? "Well, if no one is attacking you and your sheep are safe, you must be crazy," said his neighbors. "Illnesses of the mind are sent by Zeus, so we can do nothing to help you. You should pray to your father, the god Poseidon." And his neighbors went home. While I laughed at my false name, I tricked him so easily. The Cyclops was still crying out in pain. He felt around the mouth of the cave with his hands, hoping to catch us as we tried to escape. Did he really think that I was so stupid? But if we wanted to leave the land of the Cyclops alive, we needed a good plan. So I spent a long time thinking. In the end, this is what I decided to do. Okay, so it was super, super smart for Odysseus to call himself, what did he call himself, Nathan? What did he call himself, Nathan? What did Odysseus call himself? Anyone else, maybe? What did Odysseus tell the Cyclops his name was?
Nobody.
Nobody. He had thought that through. That's so smart. So at the time when his friends would help out, they wouldn't be killed. Okay, we're going to continue with Karina. Karina Devianti. The male sheep.
The male sheep in the cave were fine animals, big and strong with coats of thick black wool. I quietly tied these sheep together in groups of three, putting one of my men under the middle sheep in each group so that there was a sheep on either side to protect him. For myself, I chose the biggest sheep of all. I held on to his wool and hung upside down between his legs. We waited like this until morning.
Wow. And then they were tied around the sheep to be able to get away, basically, yeah. Sabrina, can you continue reading? Sabrina? Surya? Yehuda? Shannon? Shannon? Defa? Defa. Okay. Shannon. Shannon, can you hear me? Can you continue reading? No? Okay. We will continue with Michael. Michael, can you continue?
Yes, miss.
When it grew light?
When it grew light, the sheep made their way to the mouth of the cave. Their master, although still in great pain, passed his hands over the backs of all the animals as they stopped in front of him. The fool never thought of looking under the sheep's chest where my men were tied. My own sheep was the last one to reach the doorway. He walked more slowly than the others because of my heavy weight. As Polyphemus felt his back, he said, "Dear sheep, why are you the last to leave today? Usually you lead your companions brutally to the best grass and the clearest water in the stream, and return first in the evening to the cave. But today you are last of all. You must be sad about your master's eye. How cruel was the man who did
this to me?
and I
Nobody was his name.
Nobody was his name.
Mm-hmm.
And I will find a way to punish him. He is not safe yet. Ah, if you had a voice, you could tell me where to look for him. I would break open his head on the floor of the cave to pay him back for the pain that he has caused me.
Yeah, very good. Dustin, Ian Dustin, can you continue reading?
Which one?
With these words?
With these words, he let the sheep pass through the mouth of the cave. When we were a safe distance from the Cyclops, I came out from under my sheep and untied my companions. Then we quickly drove the sheep down towards the ship. The men at the ship were very happy to see us, but their smiles soon disappeared when they heard of the terrible fate of our lost companions. Their loud crying was putting us all in danger, so I made them get the sheep onto the ship as quickly as and quietly as possible. Then the crew sat at their oars and took the ship out to sea.
Thank you. Before we were too far from Polyphemus, I shouted, "Cyclops, your strength could not protect you from the resourceful Greeks. This is your punishment for eating your guests." My words made the Cyclops so angry that he pulled a great rock from the mountainside and threw it at us. It fell just in front of our ship, causing a wave that sent us back toward the shore. With a long stick, I pushed us back out to sea, and the crew pulled hard on their oars to save us from disaster. When I started to shout at the Cyclops again, my men tried to stop me. "Why do you want to anger this monster?" they asked. "He nearly killed us with that last rock. The next one will certainly be the end of us." But I was too full of emotion to listen to their advice. "Cyclops," I shouted again, "you should know the name of the man who blinded you. If anyone asks you, tell him that it was Odysseus, destroyer of cities, son of Laertes, who lives on the island of Ithaca." The Cyclops cried sadly. So the prophecy was true. Long ago, I was warned that a man called Odysseus would rob me of my sight. but I had always expected a powerful man, someone bigger and stronger than me. And here you are, a weak little man who confused my mind with wine and destroyed my eye. But come here, Odysseus, so that I can give you some gifts and ask Poseidon to protect you on your voyage home. Poseidon is my father, so he will listen to my request. He will give me back my sight too. If that is my fate. I shouted in reply, you are a fool, Cyclops. Poseidon will never mend your eye. The Cyclops held up his hands to the sky and prayed to his father. Poseidon, hear your son's request. Stop Odysseus, son of Laertes, from reaching his home in Ithaca. This is my dearest wish, but if you cannot do this, at least give him a terrible journey. Kill his companions, destroy his ships, and cause trouble in his palace at home. The sea god Poseidon was listening. And again the Cyclops picked up a great rock, an even bigger one than before, and threw it with all his strength at our ship. This time, though, we were further from the shore. The rock fell behind us, and its waves swept us forward to safety. At last, we reached the island where the rest of the men were waiting for our return. We shared the ship equally between 12 ships, but the man gave me the ship that had carried me out of Polyphemus' cave. I sacrificed this fine animal to the great god Zeus, but Zeus was not interested in the sacrifice. He was already busy planning the death of all my loyal companions. Okay, that has brought us to the end of chapter 5. Yeah, so we see here that definitely Odysseus basically gets away from the Cyclops. We know now also that the Cyclops is Poseidon's son. And so this is not a done deal. This is definitely Poseidon gets angry. He's angry at Odysseus. That's why on his journey further back, trying to get to Ithaca, Poseidon ruins his ship, right, out of anger because he hurt his son. So in this story, you see a lot of revenge, anger, revenge, revenge, revenge. You don't really read about forgiveness and love yet. There's a lot of anger and a lot of wars, and everything is correlated with the anger of the gods. How blessed we are that we serve a God that is loving and kind and forgiving. But in those days, we're talking 700s before Common Era, people had a very different mind and understanding of things. So yeah, remember, this is an epic poem. The genre is epic and it is a poem, yeah? Okay, we're going to continue next week. Please, for this coming week, read chapter 6. Go over it. It's good if you can read it by yourself. Yeah, it's only a few pages. And next week, we're going to have another quiz, yeah? We're going to do quiz 3. So it's important that you read chapter 6. And as next week, we're going to go over the story together, you're going to do quiz 3, okay? At the end of the semester, you will write literary analysis about the story. So it's important that you know the story because otherwise you can't write about it. Okay, are there any questions? No, we're all good. Okay, have a great day today. I will see you again this IPS next week on Monday, right? Okay, God bless you. Take care. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.